Today, we're digging into the story of a man you've probably never heard of, but whose life tells us so much about how our world was built. His name was Isaac Seaver. On paper, he was Blacksmith. But, that simple title hides this incredible story about a collision of two different eras, the old world of hand-forged iron and the brand new dawn of precision machinery. Think about it. On one hand, you've got the ancient tradition of the blacksmith, fire, hammer, anvil, total tradition. But on the other hand, you have the future, the machinist, working with precision lathes and gears, pure innovation. Isaac Seaver lived and worked right at the intersection of these two worlds. So the question is, how did one man manage to master both? That's the puzzle we're going to unpack today.
Right, so this is about way more than just a job title. Isaac's story, it really gives us this amazing ground-level view of one of the most important shifts in all of human history, the move from a world made completely by hand to one built by machines.
So let's start with the side of him we think we know. Before he got into all the new tech, Isaac Seaver was an absolute master of the forge. This traditional craft, well, it was the bedrock of his whole career, and the reason he was so important to his community. And this was the bread and butter of his business. I mean, in his town of Leominster, Massachusetts, he was the go-to guy. Shoeing horses, fitting those heavy iron tires onto wagon wheels, sharpening tools, all that constant, essential repair work that kept local farms and businesses literally up and running. The guy was indispensable. But here's the thing. He wasn't just your average repairman. What really set him apart was his niche. Isaac had a specialty, and that was creating some surprisingly advanced and complex hay-handling equipment. And listen, we are not talking about the simple pitchforks you see in old paintings. No way. He was building mechanical grapple forks. These are complex lifting devices. For a farmer who needed to hoist huge amounts of loose hay up into a barn using horsepower and pulleys, these tools were an absolute game changer. I mean, for its time, this was serious engineering. So how did he actually make one of these things? Well, it was an incredibly physical, highly skilled process. First, you're heating the iron in a roaring forge. Then you're hammering it into shape on the anvil. He would draw out these long tines, precisely bend all the parts for that grapple mechanism, punch holes for rivets, and then the final crucial step, harden the metal to make sure it could take all that strain. This was true old-world craftsmanship. Okay, so that's one side of the coin. Now let's move on to the other side of his identity, because this is where Isaac Seaver really steps out of the past and into the future. His workshop wasn't just a forge, it had a modern, mechanical edge. But that brings up a really important question. I mean, when we hear the word machinist today, we picture something totally different. So what did that title actually mean way back in the 1880s? Well, a machinist back then was this whole new breed of skilled worker. It was someone who used machines to shape metal with a kind of precision that was just impossible to do by hand. And that precision was the key to creating interchangeable parts, which is, the very foundation of all modern manufacturing. So his toolkit was getting a serious upgrade. Right alongside the old hammer and anvil, his workshop now probably had a lathe for turning perfectly round parts and a drill press for making exact holes. These machines, most likely powered by this whole system of belts hooked up to a steam engine, just opened up a completely new world of what he could create. And the impact of that was huge. Suddenly, he wasn't just serving farms anymore. Now he could manufacture precise components, things like bolts, shafts, custom gears, for the new factories that were starting to pop up all around him. He literally became a bridge, connecting that agricultural world he knew so well with the industrial world that was just being born. All right, so let's pull all this together, because Isaac Seaver's story isn't just about one guy. It's about a whole world in transition, and his dual role was incredibly important economically to his entire community. I mean, just look at who his customers were. His customer base was amazingly diverse. Yeah, local farmers were still his main market, but he was also selling his goods to hardware stores in nearby towns and, critically, supplying parts to small local industries. He had one foot planted firmly in the old agricultural economy and the other in the new industrial one. Now, to really understand the value of his work, you need to know this one number, $1.50. That's about what a regular laborer would make for a full day's work in the late 19th century. Just keep that figure in your head. Okay, now compare that wage to what his products cost. A simple handmade hay fork might cost a whole day's wages, maybe more. But one of his advanced mechanical grapple forks, whoa, that was a major purchase. It could cost a farmer several days, maybe even a full week's worth of pay. And that's the key point here. His products weren't just tools. They were serious capital investments in making a farm more productive.
So when you put all the pieces together, who was Isaac Seaver really? Well, he was a specialist toolmaker. He was an absolutely essential community repairman, and he was one of the earliest examples of a transitional industrial worker, kind of like a proto-manufacturer.
And this is the real heart of it all. He sat in this incredibly unique and valuable position, right at the hinge point between two completely different eras, the old world of handcrafted agriculture and the new world of mechanized farming and industry. And that just leaves us with this one final powerful thought. It was the people you've never heard of, the Isaac Seavers of the world, who were the essential gears in the great machine of progress. As the source material says so perfectly, quote, "People like him kept both worlds running. They were the unsung artisans who quietly and skillfully forged the modern world we live in today."